Hi, it's Molly with Molly Q Creates and StarryNightCreations.com. Today I'm going to show you how to create this Sending Showers of Love shaker card. So it's a really cute shaker card for Valentine's Day, but the fun part about it is that it uses materials like the dies are actually a more of a Christmas and winter theme set. So it's great for mixing other seasons in with Valentine's Day. Plus you create this cute shaker full of hearts. So to get started, I'm going to empty out the supplies, and the penguins on here are from a Lawn Fawn set, the Penguin Party Lawn Fawn set. So it has these fun penguins. The igloo, it has some sayings, and this is also, it has the free hug saying on it. And there's coordinating dies. And then there's also the Build a Snow Globe set from Lawn Fawn, which we're using for the snow globe on here. So I'm going to show you the pieces that we have. So there should be, you got the packet. There are 2 penguins that are stamped and die cut for you. You have the blue dotted background. Let's just go ahead and get that glued onto the card base. Now this blue is only cut to 4 inches, not 4 1/4. So align it with the top fold of the card base. And I'm going to do it so the dotted side is up. And I am using the Barely Arts glue. It has this fine detail tip that is great when we get to the shaker pieces. But I just keep that one on all the time. Okay, so now I'm going to, and one of the things I love about the liquid glue is you have a little bit of wiggle room when you apply everything to your card. Okay, so now that that is applied, take your white piece, it's a mound, and it has the stitching on it. You want to glue that to the bottom edge, and so it's going to cover up this gap. Okay, so now you have your background. You have your shaker pieces. I'm going to pour mine into a tray. I find it easier to work with them from a little tray. If you don't have a tray, like a little bowl will work. Let's take your penguins and color them in. And now if you have some type of sticky mat, or even if you have something like the Post-it tape or repositionable tape or even washi tape, if you cut a piece off and stick them to the back of it, it gives you a little bit of room to hold it for coloring. And now I'm just using an Olo marker. This one's WG7, so it's a darker gray, and then the R0.5. And this reddish I'm using for the nose. And I just go in with little strokes, and just going to grab this one and do the same thing. So the coloring on these is very simple. And you can use any alcohol marker or any marker that you use for crafting. Then with the black, I'm going to go around the just going to go around his hands. Well, basically I'm leaving the center part open and leaving that white. And when I color in, I just use little strokes. I don't go in with big strokes. I find that with the brush side, I get more control that way. And I'm just doing little. So I'm just following the outline. And then if you want to add a little bit more depth, I just kind of do. So second layer, it's the same color, but just along the top, the tops of his hands. Okay. Now, one light gray spot. Okay, so I'm just going to take him off of the tape. Put them aside. I don't want to smudge them. Like the marker dries fairly quickly, but again, I just try to avoid touching the marker. And on this one, I'm doing the same thing. I'm just going to color in his hands. I'm going to leave the board white, or the sign that he's holding. And I'm just going to color everything else in black. I did not do a good job coloring that one in, but it all works. Okay, so we're just going to set those two aside. And let's see, we have our little sentiment. So let's work on the snow globe. Now you should have 5 frames or pieces like this that have the hole cut out, 1 solid piece. You have 2 silver pieces. I'm going to mention one is longer than the other. The shorter one goes on top on the pink. This is the front of the shaker. You also have a piece of acetate. So take the piece of acetate, and the acetate is scored, but not cut all the way through. So we're just going to cut out the acetate right inside the score mark. You do not want to cut it smaller than the inside of this frame. This is going to get glued to the back side of one of these pieces. So you do not want to cut the acetate smaller than this line. And this bottom part, the acetate follows this line. You can cut this bottom part off. You're concerned with the circle on it. And I know it's kind of hard to see. So, but like I said, just stay right. You can stay on or just to the inside of the score line. And it does cut fairly easily. And then when I get down to the bottom, I'm just cutting that, and then that's garbage. So you can see better when I hold it up to there. You can see that I have a circle. And when I hold it up to here and look at the back, nothing's hanging over. And if there is something hanging over, it is hanging over a little bit here. You can either trim it off now, or once you glue it on, you can trim it off. I'm going to trim. The thing is, you don't want to over trim and go from too big to too small. Okay, so that works. So now I'm going to take my glue, and I'm just going to put glue on this part, like the circle, so that I can adhere the acetate to it. And this is the back side of the cardstock. You can kind of tell because it's a little bit more crinkled. The outside is smooth, and then it has 2 score lines for the base. So again, this is where I really like the detailed glue with the detailed tip on the Barely Arts, so that you can just do a thin layer of glue around there. And I'm going to take the acetate, glue it together, and just going to press it together and make sure it holds. And down here I did get too much, so I'm just going to wipe that off with my finger. It does dry clear, so I'm not overly concerned about it. Okay. Now this is the important thing. This piece you have, we'll call this the front. If you have any gunk on it, just wipe it off. So take this piece, it has the acetate glue to it, and set it aside. Now take your remaining 4 frames and glue them together. So this is what's going to create the depth so the shakers can move around. And so you just want glue around the circle. You want to hold the pieces together. And do that again for the next layer. And then one more time for the 4th one. And so this is one way of building depth. Like a lot of times you use foam tape for building the depth for shaker cards. But with this, the snow globe area was actually really thin. So in those cases, I find it easier just to die cut it multiple times, depending upon the thickness of the paper. 4 to 5 times usually works well. Okay, so now you got a pretty, plus it actually makes it a lot more sturdier, your shaker piece. So now you have one solid piece. Now we're going to take the back piece. And now I'm going to do something with this that this is completely optional, but I'm going to add a bit of interest. I'm going to show you, here's a card I did where I just left the back blank, and it's fine. You know, you have the shakers moving around. It's cute. But here's another one where I did a stencil in the background. So it just adds a little bit more interest to it. I'm using the Spiradalia stencil from Catherine Fuller for this. And this is the stamp wheel from Altenew. The wonderful thing about the stamp wheel, you can see I use it quite a bit, is that it has this photopolymer base to it that you can rinse off when you get dirty. Of course, some inks are going to stain it. It's the same material as the stamps. So it is sticky all on its own. So I'm just going to set that down there. I didn't put any adhesive or anything on it, and it'll stay. And then so I'm going to move it down a little bit. And now I'm going to put the stencil. Again, it's a Spiradalia stencil from Catherine Fuller. I'm going to try to center it. It doesn't have to be perfectly centered. Actually, I'm going to flip it over. Flipping it over just because I did do it on a bigger piece, and then I did use some of the pixie spray on there to make it stickier. This stencil does not have a lot of mass to it. And when you're doing I did it when I did on this card base, because the card base was so much bigger, there wasn't much area for it to grip. So then I used the pixie spray on it. But generally, I just use this mat. I'm going to use some pink champagne ink from Catherine Fuller. Again, any light pink or pink that you have, and then a blending brush. Now, when I do this, it's important I start off of the stencil, because then that prevents getting a big splotch of ink right on your design. And then I'm just going in circles. I'm not tapping. It's just a circle motion. And I'm not concerned about this base area. That's all going to be covered. And like I said, any stencil will work. It's just to add a little bit of interest to the background. And let me peel it up. And again, this isn't, if you don't have stencils, if you don't have any blending brushes, you can also use foam on it. You know, the foam daubers, however you want. But again, the stuff is optional. Okay, so now that I have that done, I'm going to take, this is the piece with the window with the 4 layers that I glued together. So now I'm going to glue this to the base. Put more glue up here. It's not sticking real well. So I'm just going to do another bead of glue. And just hold it down. Move up the glue. Okay. So now I'm going to set that aside to dry. I'm going to pick up this pink piece, and now this is just cut from the same die as this. So you have pieces, pink pieces that are kind of coming up. Those just get trimmed off. So you just want this. Then glue this to, and again, you can use either the dotted side or the solid side. I'm going to use the solid side. Glue this to your snow globe. And then take your silver pieces. Again, one is longer than the other, so take the shorter one for the top. And glue that on. And then, and now sometimes with these pieces, find it easier if it's a thin piece to put the adhesive right on the base and then put the piece on top of it. Okay, so now we have those pieces. And then on the sample, I did add a couple foam hearts there. So I'm going to put 3 dots of glue. Sorry that you're seeing my head. So I'm just putting 3 dots of glue where I want the hearts to go. And on this one, I'm going to do a red heart in the center. And I did not center my dot so well, so I'm just going to slide it over. And then I'm going to do white dots on each side. So now I have the hearts there. Now, I've not filled this in yet. I'm going to put it in place, and you notice how on here, notice on the sample, I did add hearts around the outside. I did put one in this guy's hand. So at this point, you can start gluing this stuff down. Make sure like any dust and debris is kind of wiped away. And now with these guys, you can also pop them up or you can glue them directly down. But you just kind of find the position of how you want everything. And then you can add, again, like I said, at this point, you can glue this down or you can leave that freestanding and put the shakers in afterwards. You also have your sentiment. Put it on the top, center it, just kind of like it off to the side. And I'm going to use some foam tape. This is a thin foam tape. And pop it up. One more small piece. So now I'm going to use the foam tape, like I said, to pop it up. And I'm just putting it down here off to the side. I think I'm going to pop up my penguins too on this one. I don't need much tape, but just a little. I like adding the dimension, and we already have the dimension of the shaker card, so, or of the snow globe. So we might as well pop up the penguins too. Put that guy jumping there. And then I'll just tear up another little piece. Put him there. Now I'm going to put the background parts on. And one of the reasons why I'm doing this at this point is so that you don't forget to leave some out and you fill up your shaker with all of them. Because I think having them in the background coming down just adds some like a little bit of unexpected dimension to it and a little bit more color. So I'm just going to put some random dots. And if you have a jewel picker, you can use that for picking up the hearts. And placing them. Let me grab some pink ones. Get one more over here. And then do a few more. And so, like I said, this is not glued down yet. The shaker is not finished. Just kind of letting the glue dry a bit. And we're going to add some shaker pieces to the outside. So then I say shaker pieces don't just have to be stuck inside of a shaker. So I might need a little bit more glue. And I'm just randomly putting them on here and mixing up colors. Take one more pink. And then I'm going to put a little drop in his hand. And drop a red one. So there, he caught a heart. Okay. So now at this point, the card's almost done. We have the front of the card. We have these shaker pieces. So let's go ahead and you can drop the rest of them in there. You can use as many as you want. Just don't overfill it and kind of play around with them so that you get them in a single layer. Make them easier to move around. I'm going to put the cap on, but use the end of this to kind of, you can also use like the point of your scissors or if you have a piercing tool. And sometimes you do get like random pieces that you can either just leave in or take out like I did with that little piece of red. Okay, so now my acetate got a little gunked up, so I'm just going to grab a towel. I'm just going to gently wipe it off. Acetate can scratch easily, so I don't want to put too much pressure, but I just wanted to clean it off. Okay, so now I'm going to glue this. Put glue on, I'm going to do glue on the back side. I'm going to do glue on here and then apply that down. Again, try to keep the pieces. You want to keep them also away from the outside, so you don't want them to get caught in the glue, although some of them may, and it's not a big deal. They just kind of stay in place, which is fine. Okay. So I'm going to do this so you don't have to see my head. But just make sure you don't need a huge bead of glue, but like I said, the detail tips work really well. And the Barely Arts glue dries relatively quickly. And I'm just going to randomly put some on the front so it stays together. The other nice thing about the Barely Arts glue is that it does come with each bottle that you buy, like when you need another bottle, although they do have refills, but they do come with the tips and the needle so you can keep it in the tip so it doesn't clog up. Okay. Now, add some that stood up. So there. Yeah, I keep getting them standing up. Another thing you could use is an embossing tool or a powder tool to gently rub in the inside of it and around the edges on the inside to help prevent some of the static. But now you just kind of press that down. I'm going to flip it over, and here you want to make sure it gets glued well. And glue it in place. Again, I'm just going to position it, hold it down with my hand for a few seconds. And there you go, sending showers of love. So there. Hope you enjoyed this card. Thank you.